What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Sly Geordie, and welcome back to F1 23, my team career mode for the Austrian Grand Prix. And if you missed last episode at the Canadian Grand Prix, it was definitely a different one, that's for sure. Sudden rain changed pretty much everything in the race. We had a DRS fault in qualifying, so we had to start all the way down in P9. George Russell is starting to struggle quite a bit, and so we are now 42 points ahead in the drivers' standings. The constructors is pretty much already won, and like I said last episode, we've pretty much mastered F1 23 at this point, and I'm more than ready for a new game. But looking at the rest of the standings, McLaren, they're pretty close together. Well, Piastri is about 30 points ahead, but they are next to each other, which is what McLaren will definitely like. Sainz not having the greatest of seasons. Of course, he's had 2 DNFs this season, one coming literally at the last Grand Prix. Sergio Perez has not had the greatest of seasons, although the last couple of races have been big improvements for Checo, of course. Mercedes not doing the greatest, as usual. Mercedes, for some reason, in these career modes, it doesn't matter what YouTube channel it is, they're just shit. They're just bad. Like, Théo Pourchaire is outscoring Lance Stroll. He's actually scoring some consistent points, so good for him, honestly. Quite weird how Lance has just immediately gone back to being bad again. He was bad in Season 1, of course, as he only scored about 10 points the entire season, as opposed to Fernando Alonso's 140. Such a huge deficit that Lawrence Stroll was so embarrassed, he actually finally kicked Lance out of Aston Martin, replaced him with George Russell or Théo Pourchaire, because Alonso had to retire at the end of Season 1 as well. So Stroll ended up not having a seat on the grid until we hired him, and he scored 6 points for us, which at the time was a nice little record for us, for our teammate. And then, of course, Season 3, he was in the title fight. And then Season 4, he did pretty well. He wasn't in the title fight, but he did pretty well. So I guess it's just him being at Aston Martin. It's just not a good deal for him. But yeah, we have won most of the races this season. We have been really, really strong. And we're looking to continue that at the Red Bull Ring, of course. Now, obviously, Austria has not been the strongest track for us throughout this series. We did win it last season, of course, but in all the seasons prior, it weren't the greatest. And of course, this is also a long race weekend, since we also have the sprint race to do. So yeah, round 10 of the Formula 1 Grand Prix, Formula 1 Championship, sorry. And we have about 13 races to go until the end of the season. And yeah, the end of our playthrough of this game. And oh my god, once again, we've got rain in the race. Oh, that is insane. That is perfect for content. But man, isn't it weird that it's now happened twice in a row where we're finally getting some weather changes in the races? I love it. I absolutely love it, especially since I just came back from illness. And there's an 81% chance of rain in the race. So it's going to be raining throughout the race. It's not going to be like Canada, where we started on dries and switched to inters. Like, no, this is genuinely going to be inters the whole way through. So, yeah. But the sprint should be dry. So we've still got, you know, some work to do, obviously. And yeah, this is also going to be the last game where we have this sprint format. We should have the new format in the next game, which I'm definitely looking forward to doing, having the extra qualifying session, of course, with the sprint shootout. So yeah, we're going to have longer episodes then as well, so we'll definitely have to change like the qualifying settings from Season 2 onwards. We'll see though, we'll see what happens. I'm just really looking forward to the next game, to be quite honest with you. And I'm looking forward to doing different content, because we'll be doing driver career instead of my team, so it's going to feel very different as well. So let's actually have a look at some of the R&D. Aston Martin have brought in some upgrades. Red Bull have brought in some upgrades. So some of these teams have the ability to bring in more upgrades than us, which is a little unfair. If, like, to be honest, like, what the hell is that? Like, we're pretty much maxed out apart from the last durability upgrade, which comes from Red Bull. So where are these Red Bull upgrades coming from? Because they have the exact same engine supplier. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. But, yeah, in terms of the progress, look at that, man. Alpine have brought in some upgrades, Mercedes have brought in some upgrades, and of course Aston Martin are now the second fastest team on the grid ahead of us. So, yeah, quite sad, honestly. Aston Martin just never really had the drivers for it. I mean, they had George Russell, but Théo Pourchaire and Lance Stroll are clearly not the drivers to take Aston Martin to that next level. Like, their engineers must be so mad at Lawrence Stroll and whoever's hiring for the drivers at Aston Martin, because they're consistently making championship-winning cars, and yet they just cannot seem to have the drivers to fully compete for it, or they just drop off towards the end of the season. Who knows how well Russell could have done in that Aston Martin had we not poached him to our team. Who knows? But we'll see what happens next game, because I do plan to actually have an Aston Martin stint in our driver career mode. So, yeah, maybe we'll finally bring some silverware to that team. But whatever, it's now finally time to get into the Austrian Grand Prix. And I am really, really looking forward to it. Well, here we are, qualifying for the Austrian Grand Prix. This is going to be a very, very different occasion here. Just like last episode, well, not exactly like last episode, but I'm really glad that we're getting some weather changes this season compared to like other seasons, because man, we don't get this very often. But I've not actually changed my Austria setup at all from last season, in the hopes of qualifying the best we can. Now, of course, Austria has been one of the more difficult tracks with these maxed out MyTeam cars since Season 3. So, you know, I'm not truly confident going into it, but who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I've not changed my setup from last year because we did win the race last year. And we might have to change it in the race, who knows? But I'm going to stick with this as it is, and then we'll see what goes on and goes down in the sprint. But here we go, coming around the final corner. Yeah, wasn't feeling too confident around this track, and look at that, half a second off of Piastri, which is just not good at all. So we do go for another lap, of course. We were a 10th down, but we actually caught up to the Haas of Jehan de Ruvala. And, yeah, getting a bit of a slipstream there. We've caught back that 10th. And look at this corner right here in particular. Losing a lot of time there, but gaining a lot as we come around the final corner. But, yeah, some of those corners you can really tell that these maxed out MyTeam cars are just not it. And look at that. Even that lap was just good enough for P13. Piastri's down in P11 though, so we might be sensing some big differences. But again, we're going for our third and final lap, getting a slipstream off of the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, he manages to get just a little bit away from us, so we do lose a bit of that slipstream, but we do take that corner a lot better, and we've ruined it. Oh, we were 3/10 up. And that final corner lost about a couple, and yeah, that lap was only just good enough for P12.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Norris, Tsunoda, Sainz, Théo Pourchaire, Bottas, Gasly, Leclerc, Perez, Oscar Piastri, the owner-driver, Ocon, Stroll, Liam Lawson, Sargent, Drugovic, Albon, Magnussen, De Vries, Joe, and Jehan Daruvala. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
So here we go, ready for the sprint race. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but this with this old sprint format, of course, is essentially just a glorified qualifying, but in race conditions. So yeah, I can't wait to actually do the new format in the next game. Hopefully that's in there. Like, it'll probably be one of the talking points, I'm sure. But here we go, 5 red lights. And we are underway. Oscar Piastri doesn't have the best start. He tries to cover us off, of course. And look at this. Wow, big dive bomb there. And did gain us a few positions, although we didn't get a lot of grip out of it, unfortunately. So we just lost a couple. But P8, after starting P12, is genuinely really good. And look at this. Very close racing so far. If you look off into the distance there, Russell, our teammate, didn't have the greatest of starts, being overtaken by both Verstappen and Tsunoda, and he's being pressured by the Aston Martin of Théo Pourchaire, who's having a pretty good Grand Prix weekend so far, qualifying as high as he has, and you know, being able to chase down my teammate, of course. So maybe keeping our setup from last year perhaps wasn't the greatest idea. I don't know, but I definitely wanted to prioritize dry conditions at first. So if we're going to do good in at any time, it's going to be now, you know, in the sprint race. So yeah, we are sandwiched between the two Alpines. Well, we were. Sergio Perez has overtaken Ocon, but we are now looking to chase down Pierre Gasly. And yeah, he's looking to take the inside. We're going to go around that outside, of course. And yeah, he's still there. He's still fighting down the inside, of course. So look at this. He's actually already overtaken us, but we have the racing line, and we have completed the move for P7. And now we look to chase down the two Mercedes cars, who are actually fighting. Look at them side by side here. And we actually make a little bit of contact with the flying fin of Valtteri Bottas, but he's got DRS on Norris, and he might be looking for an overtake around the outside. Can he even complete that move? Norris is going to make it very difficult. They make contact, and that actually is enough to get Norris off of his game. And Valtteri Bottas makes a really nice overtake on Lando Norris right there, as we are right behind him. And look at this, we outbrake ourselves just a bit. Although I did feel like we were forced wide a little bit, and I think the game felt that way as well, as it has allowed the overtake on Lando Norris to stand. And look at this, Bottas really squeezing us out on the outside here. Very close racing with the Mercedes cars. But look at that, Théo Pourchaire has actually completed the move on George Russell, surprisingly. So that's not a good weekend for us so far. And look at this, last lap, final lap, Valtteri Bottas actually completes the overtake on us, but we do have the racing line, and we're able to stay ahead here. Norris has been overtaken by Sergio Perez, but we really do need to keep an eye on these guys. Look at them, 3 wide behind us for a second now, I'm pretty sure. Russell has improved to P3, Yuki Tsunoda's dropped off a little bit, maybe some engine issues as both Pourchaire and Russell overtaken, but yeah. Bit of a shame that George has not had a good race. Of course, he did get pole position in qualifying after all. But yeah, for us, P5 is pretty good. And we just don't seem to be the strongest car around the Red Bull Ring. And we've always really struggled with this. But particularly since these cars have been like maxed out since season 3. We've really struggled in certain braking zones. And look at this, Sergio Perez looking for the overtake, and wow, bit too late in the lap, but he got quite the slipstream. But there you go, P5 in the race after starting P12, P5 in the sprint race, should I say, after starting P12. So it's a huge improvement, and definitely something that we can really build off of for the main race. So yeah, let's have a look at the rest of the grid before we continue on. Look at this, Max Verstappen takes the win in the sprint race, Théo Pourchaire second place, George Russell P3, Yuki Tsunoda P4, we are P5, we've got Perez in P6, Bottas, Norris. Yeah, pretty straightforward. We're still quite ahead in the championship regardless of what happens, but yeah, definitely a tough weekend so far, but the sprint race has given us a bone. Let's see if we can run away with it.
Welcome from the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's a short lap here in Spielberg with just 10 corners, 7 to the right and 3 to the left, making up the total distance of 2.6 miles. And expect to see a lot of cars running wide today, especially through the last corner, as the wet conditions make the cars skittish through the downhill sections. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Théo Pourchaire completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Russell, Tsunoda, the owner driver, Perez, Bottas, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Stroll, Ocon, Liam Lawson, De Vries, Drugovich, Sargent, Albon, Magnussen, Joe, and Jehan Deruvala. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. Let's have a chat about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Well, this is it, and as you could probably already tell, there is a lot of rain falling down right here, but not enough for full wets. That's really rare apparently, but we'll be on inters for the whole race.
Right then, the formation lap has started, and I must say the weather conditions aren't the best today for visibility and for grip. As each driver performs this lap, they'll be wanting to settle in and concentrate, as this race, in these conditions, will require a lot of focus. We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Looks to be very treacherous conditions here in Austria at the Red Bull Ring. But we do have a pretty good place on the grid, and to be honest, we've always been pretty decent on inters, but Austria has not been the kindest track for us in this career mode this year on this game. So yeah, who knows what could happen. We're starting right behind George as well, so I might let him go out in front. It just depends what his pace is looking like as we kick this race off. But here we go, up to 5 red lights, and they are out, and away we go. Yuki Tsunoda gets a great start. Russell doesn't get the greatest of starts. Bottas gets a great start. Perez gets a great start, overtaking us, and we are actually going around the outside of our teammates. So Russell completely collapsing in the 4 races after a really good qualifying for him, getting pole position, just not being able to transform it in the race. And look at this, we're actually going to move out to the outside as a little preventative measure to make sure we don't just ram right into the back of Tsunoda. Of course, We've seen that as a bit of an issue with Austria and these maxed out cars in recent seasons. So yeah, definitely going to be a lot more careful with the experience that I have now. But P4, as we start off this race, it's a pretty good start. Although I don't really feel like we're making too much progress, of course, and who knows? Sonoda is already getting away from us, so I don't know what's going on, but we'll see what happens. Russell is right behind us. If he looks to be the faster car, I will probably let him overtake. So without further ado, let's skip ahead a few laps and see where we are at. And yeah, look at that. It's exactly as I said. 3.6 seconds ahead is Sonoda, and Sergio Perez is going to screech past us. I'm not even going to make it difficult for him as he immediately goes past us into P4. We just don't have the pace. And honestly, I think it's my fault just keeping the same setup as we would have had in the dries. I'm pretty sure we could have really done with some extra downforce. So honestly, mostly my fault, but we're looking to challenge Perez again. He defends really, really hard there. But yeah, that's it. This is about the point where I gave up. We were clearly not the faster car between me and George at this point, so I've let him pass. And we skip ahead to lap 7 now, and the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas has caught up to us. We're going to dive down the inside to attempt to keep the move, and we've just completely outbraked ourselves. Our race is falling apart at the seams as Oscar Piastri in McLaren is the next one up to overtake us, and Pierre Gasly in the Alpine follows him through. So we are really, really not doing well on this lap, and honestly at this point I had completely made my mind up. At this rate we were going to fall completely out of the points. So yeah, bringing it up on the menu now in the bottom right corner. We are increasing the downforce on the front for our pit stop. We are going to pit on the next lap, and I mean honestly maybe it should have been this lap, because Lando Norris is making an easy move and Leclerc bashes into our side pod. So that's really not good, and there's a little bit of retaliation there, trying to squeeze him, literally push him towards the wall. And Lance Stroll is the next one to overtake us, our former teammate, who's really not doing well in the Aston Martin. I did mention it last episode, didn't I? Just Pourchaire is completely outperforming Stroll. Two of our former teammates, of course, Stroll and Pourchaire, and I'm surprised there was no damage there, and that is one of the main issues with Austria as you go further through the career mode. But yeah, this race would be pretty much done if we stayed out with the setup that we do have. So we are coming into the pits. We are going to most likely be the only car that actually comes into the pits in this entire race. So yeah, let's see. Hopefully we can salvage something out of it, and hopefully George can salvage a lot of points for the team as well. Not that it matters too much. We are really far ahead in the constructor standings. So yeah, it's been a poor weekend for us, but in the grand scheme of things we don't have to worry too much. But I still want to get as much points as possible. I want to beat that record set by Verstappen in season 1. So yeah, let's get about trying to claim something out of this Grand Prix, as it only takes us a couple of laps here to catch up to Guan Yu Zhou in the Alfa Romeo, and a little dive bomb there makes the pass. Of course we are going to have a lot more grip compared to a lot of these guys, because of course these guys have been going this entire race 9 laps longer than us. And there we go, that's a good pass on Kevin Magnussen in the Williams. He definitely made that a little bit harder for us, as he was definitely a lot more aggressive. But look who's in front of us. This is our old rival, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Ferrari just not really doing well, so it's nice to see that we're not the only team that are doing pretty woeful compared to our usual. Just Austria seems to be a bogey track for some teams in this game, mainly us. But it's nice to see we're not the only ones, as we look to dive down the inside of Carlos Sainz, and we end up in the gravel a little bit, which is not good. And now we have to once again contend with Logan Sargent, who's trying to reclaim his P18. Of course, he was really easy to pass earlier because he's got some engine issues, unfortunately. We don't have to worry about that. Obviously, we need to worry about what's in front of us, and that is Carlos Sainz. As we move on to the next lap, we are going to attempt the dive bomb again, and this time it works, as we now set our sights on our former teammate, our very first teammate, Felipe Drugovich, who has found a home at Alfa Romeo, and yeah, he's been there through the majority of the career mode, and he is going to be the next person that we pass with all this extra grip. We are just trying to make as much progress through the order as possible, and now the next couple cars ahead of us are the AlphaTauris of Alexander Albon and Nick De Vries. So first up, lap 14, it's Nick De Vries, and he's going to take the outside. Smart move from him, but very easy move down the inside for us. I'm pretty sure that was actually more the racing line for us, so really good. And on the next lap, we're going to try and do something identical with Albon, but he is defending a bit more aggressively here as we look to once again get back into his slipstream. And now we look to make the move around the outside into turn 1. It has been done. Next up is Liam Lawson in the Haas, who we once again catch on a similar part of the track. Sector 3 appears to be a really strong part of the track for us compared to the rest, and now we have caught up to the 3 guys battling for the last point. It seems the top 9 have actually managed to gap these guys. Wow, that was close, completely outbraking ourselves and having to take evasive action immediately there as we lose a position to Liam Lawson. But yeah, the guys top 9 are well ahead, and I wonder if that's because Leclerc has actually sustained damage after ramming into our side pod earlier. He's not pit, of course, so maybe he's holding up all these guys behind to the point that the top 9 have just completely gone. I've not even seen them on the mini-map. I have absolutely no idea where they are, but we've retaken P13 against Liam Lawson, and now we look to go around the outside of Esteban Ocon. We take a bit too much curb there, so we're struggling a little bit, but yeah, bit of fighting between Ocon and Stroll here. Leclerc is out in the distance just a little bit, but he certainly has damage, certainly, surely. But there you go, lovely move down the inside of Ocon, and that caught Ocon completely unawares, to the point that Liam Lawson was actually able to follow us through, so good for him. It didn't last long though, because Ocon overtook him again, but now we look to go past our former teammate of Lance Stroll, who was really aggressive with us in the last Grand Prix. If you guys remember, pretty much, I think he attempted to kill us, to be quite honest. But yeah, this is it. Now looking to chase down Lance Stroll, who is also looking to chase down Leclerc. Leclerc is really slow around these corners. He definitely has damage. But look at this now. We're able to get a good run on Lance Stroll, although he is going to be just a little bit quicker on this straight line here with that Mercedes engine. So good to see. Well, not really good to see, but interesting to see in these conditions. The Mercedes engine actually performs really well. But yeah, look at this. Lance Stroll, really good switchback from him. We are really fighting with our former teammate here. But there you go. We finally complete the move for P11. And now there is just one man between us and the final point on the grid. And look at this, 18 seconds ahead. There's no way Leclerc wasn't holding up a bunch of guys behind him. I mean, look at how slow he is coming out of that corner. As we now turn the RS on, we've got the slipstream. What are we going to do here? We're going to go to the right, try and dummy Leclerc. He falls for it just enough for us to make the move around the outside. And that is pretty much our Grand Prix finished. Lady Luck, however, does smile on us just a little bit. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, unfortunately having an engine failure, and so we're able to double our points a little bit. We were able to double our points, get 2 instead of 1, and of course added onto our sprint points. Not the worst weekend, but definitely the worst one we've had this season. It's a P9 for us in the Austrian Grand Prix. That was a tough weekend. But driver of the day for the most overtakes. But just imagine where we could have been if we had more downforce from the get-go.
To take the win for Red Bull today. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team.
Well, besides Max Verstappen, look at that podium. Théo Pourchaire in the Aston Martin once again on the podium, and Yuki Tsunoda in the McLaren finally outperforms Oscar Piastri. I don't know what happened to Yuki when he went to McLaren. He just got completely outclassed by Piastri, but Tsunoda's had a really good race here. Well deserved for him, and same for Pourchaire. So let's actually have a look here. George Russell was able to pull out a P10, so yeah, not the strong P4, sorry, not the strongest weekend for us, and we've actually lost a lot of points right there, about 7 points to George Russell there, and Verstappen is only a point behind Russell. So the drivers' standings, the drivers' championship is still very much up for contention. But yeah, at least we're able to salvage, we were able to salvage about 7 points from that Grand Prix. So it genuinely wasn't the worst weekend ever, but it was definitely a tough one, and I'm hoping we don't have another weekend like that this season. Once again, my aim now is to beat the amount of points that Verstappen set in the only other 23 race season, which was season 1. So yeah. Anyway, guys, that's the end of this episode. If you guys liked it, be sure to hit that like button as high as possibly can, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time for some more F123. Peace!